everyone, and welcome back to the Upward Spiral podcast. We are so thrilled to have the amazing Laurel Wiers here as our guest today. Laurel, welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to this conversation today.
Yes. So I'm going to introduce Laurel. I have a bit of her bio here, and then I'll let you, again, add to that in any way you'd like. But Laurel is an author, keynote speaker, and an executive coach and consultant. She's been a licensed marriage and family therapist, practicing for over 24 years. She's master certified in accelerated resolution therapy, as well as national trainer in ART. She consults for universities as well as provides continuing education for hospitals and non-clinical agencies. She is the author of Betrayed, Not Broken, and has been featured in the Chicago Tribune, Military Life magazine, Newsweek, and is a contributor to Successful Living and Successful Marriage. She works with first responders, veterans, athletes, high performers, and organizations seeking to cultivate trauma-informed environments. She is a contributor to the recently released therapeutic modality of critical memory integration and has assisted in training clinicians internationally in this method as well as serves as a mentor and supervisor to clinicians. She's also the founder of Optimal Outcome. Laurel, again, welcome.
Thank you.
So, Laurel, we want to know, I mean, you've done so much, very successful author and speaker, and something very near and dear to, I think, Dr. G and I, in that your work around wellness and trauma and all that. So, to kind of kick this off, what is your recent passion project? What is your vocation currently, and what inspired you to that? What brought you there?
All right. Well, it's been an interesting 18 months, I could say. So, I've been a clinician, as you mentioned, for 24, 25 years at this point. And about 18 months ago, I decided to make this pivot out of clinical work into completely private work. So, what I found was that while I was working with the people in my practice, I was starting to have these high performance individuals starting to come in. And I found that I could use some of the same methods that I was using for clinical issues for performance issues.
Hmm.
So at the point I'm at, right, I've done this for a long time. I love my clients. I own a group practice in Connecticut and I've loved that work, but I thought, you know what? I think before I retire, I want to do something a little bit different. So I started this transition, this pivot into now I'm ending my clinical work and I'm working privately with C suites, executives, and just
Oh,
really helping them perform better by taking the blocks in their life and really neutralizing them because right we know that trauma triggers negative life events, they inhibit performance. So I'm using those same modalities to actually help them level up their game. So that's what I've been doing, a little speaking at conferences, but I really love my one-on-one work with people.
wow.
That's so cool. That's amazing. Congratulations. We all know that
Thank you.
transition from like one thing to another can be difficult. Even if it's something you want to do, it still kind of can be scary.
Yes.
Congratulations on that. How are you? So
Thank
you've been
you.
doing this for 18 months. How do you feel? Does it feel natural? How are you feeling in it?
It feels completely natural because it's the same thing. It's just
Hmm.
I get to have more fun with it. So instead
Yeah.
of having to deal with insurance companies and having to worry about diagnoses and stay in one place, either people fly to me or I fly to
Yeah.
them. And we do
Love
either,
that.
or I do a lot of virtual work. So
Mhm.
people that come to me that only have like one or two small things that they know are inhibiting them, I can work with them online. But when we get to the point that we've got four, five, six memory sets in someone's life or events that have happened, negative life events, then I say, okay, we need to spend a good chunk of time together. But the nice thing about it is it's so expedient. So these people can come in for 2 days and go home and wipe out years worth of trauma and really save themselves months and years worth of therapy. So it's very attractive to the population I'm working with
Wow.
because that's what they want, right? Time is money. So if you can come in with me and hang out with me for 6 hours and clear up a bunch of stuff and
Yeah.
then go back to work and improve your performance and only miss 2 days, like that's golden
That's
for so many
amazing.
people.
That's
Wow.
amazing.
Yes.
What kind of tools are you using? Because not everybody can, right, within six
Yeah.
hours, like consolidate that many years of therapy. I'm really curious to hear.
Yes. So I use actually three forms of therapy. So the first one I was ever trained in years ago is called accelerated resolution therapy. The second one is called critical memory integration, and that's part of the team that I was a contributor for. We actually just trained the military in Spain in this in February. And then the
Wow.
third is EMDR, which a lot of people are
Yeah.
familiar with. So I'm kind of a unicorn at this point in that I'm probably one of the few people, honestly, in the world that's trained in all three of those modalities because CMI is so new. And so I got the honor of being one of the first clinicians trained in that, along with the two other
Wow.
evidence-based modalities. So what I do is I take them and I weave them all together to create this beautiful format that I use for each trauma that I have to pull. So the way that
Wow.
I work with people is we identify through body and sensory, right, the sensations in their body, the subsets of traumas that need to be pulled. Traumas are
Mhm.
thematic within our body. So you can have 10 years of the same trauma, and that might only be one or two sessions for me to pull it. So if you've had like a car accident, domestic violence, and let's say you were bullied when you were a child, that would be like 3 to 4, I call them trauma pulls, which is an
Mhm.
hour to 2 hours per pull. So when people come in, that's the type of stuff that we can clear out in
Wow.
literally 6 hours. You can reset the body because, as we know, our body holds all of this, right? Bessel van der Kolk's book, Body Keeps the Score.
Mhm.
Our bodies, right, when we have memories that are too big to process, they stay stuck in static form. All throughout the day, right, we're gaining information. We go to sleep at night and our brain processes it, right? It's called adaptive information processing. It's a normal thing. Our brains want to do it. Our brains are geared towards health, as you all know full
Yeah.
well.
Mhm.
So, but when something is too big and too traumatic, your brain, it's like it gets stuck and it's like too big, can't do this. So that's where I come in, and using those modalities, we change the way that the brain stores the negative images and sensations attached to that memory. The narrative is never a problem, it's the images and sensations. That's what
Mhm.
gets stuck. So we can take those, file them back in your brain, neutralize them, and then your block is gone with it.
Wow. That's so
Wow.
powerful.
I'll
That's
say
so
this really
powerful.
resonates with me too. Yeah, I agree, Dr. E. Obviously, it's extremely powerful. And it really does resonate with me. I think, I've spoken on the show about my story. I've spoken to Laurel about it as well, in conversation about the trauma that I've experienced, and being in a high performing type of profession that we're all in as clinicians here, right? Um, and then having that trauma, I never thought about that and that association. So I wonder if you could speak about, have you found that there's a difference for those who are in that type of high performing vocation who do suffer from trauma and how they experience that?
No, all of us experience trauma the same, right? Actually, I don't even like to use the word trauma because trauma cuts out a large group of the population that won't then seek help because they say it wasn't big enough, important enough, it doesn't register on the trauma scale. So the
Mm.
way I look at it is it's called negative life events. So in a negative life event, right, is anything that you can say, this was me before the event and this was me after the event, right? When we've had a big life event, it's changed us. And if it's stuck in the brain, what we know is that I want to get back to who I was before that event because since then I have this filter that I'm seeing life through, or my
Right.
body is in this fight or flight state saying, never again, we don't want to feel that way. And that's where we're stuck. And it really can be anything, any event. It could just be one comment, it can be a look. And that's where
Yeah.
people say, oh, I can't go to therapy, or I don't need this type of work that Laurel does because I didn't have a rape, didn't experience a bombing, or didn't have a death. None of those things. Those are all clinical, right? To get a diagnosis, it has to be A, B, or C. But what we know, the brain is its own world. Each of us is our own world. And what it perceives as threatening, it can be anything, but it is no different in how our brain stores it and how our body reacts to it. I've worked with
Wow.
people. I had a girl once, her mother said to her when she was like 6 years old, she was sitting singing in the back of the car. And she thought she was doing pretty darn good, right? What cute little six
Mhm.
year old does not think they have a beautiful, amazing voice? And all mom said to her was, we might want to get you some singing lessons, honey. And that was it. She has been a wallflower and super shy most of her life because of that response of, ooh,
Wow.
I'm not enough. There's something wrong with me, right? It becomes a negative belief or a limiting belief. So she comes in her late 40s and she never knew it was attached to that. So what's so cool
Wow.
about memories is that I can have people come into me. They never present with that. They'll say to me,
Mhm.
Laurel, I'm so shy when I have to speak in front of people or even in social situations, I can't perform. And I'll
Hmm.
say, okay, let's go back to your body. I want you to imagine yourself right now in that situation where you have to talk to someone. Tell me what you feel in your body. And they can say, like, oh, it's like right here in my stomach. And then I'll just say, let's track that back.
Hmm.
When else in your life did you feel that way? So I start pulling this thread, right? And then lo and behold, it's usually 6 to 8 years old, I find.
Hmm.
Sometimes we have like really young stuff with other traumas, but with some of these things, it's 6 to 8. And then they'll say, oh, it feels just like, and this is what they say, this can't be it. I haven't thought
Hmm.
about this in years.
Yeah.
And then she'll say, it was that. And they'll say, perfect, there's the memory. So all I have to do is take that memory and reprocess it, change the way your brain looks at it, and it like dissolves. And then it's clear. And now you are allowed to be who you were before those words were spoken over you. She called me
Wow.
up like 3, 4 weeks after that session and she said, you won't even believe this. I went to a women's retreat with my church and I hate mealtime because you go in, you don't know who you're sitting with, all these
Hmm.
people you don't know. And she said, I walked in, sat with people, chatted, and it wasn't until after that I thought, oh my gosh, that was really weird. I acted totally different and she loved it. So,
Wow.
Wow.
That's so I have actually this totally reminded me. I went to a seminar. I'm doing a coaching program with Ryan Zofe, and I'm part of the coaching program. I went to an in-person seminar in the beginning of July, right? You ask Mike. I went to the seminar. By the end of the seminar, we did an intervention during the thing, and same thing. Asked me about like why I was there. Questions led to like a memory. Memory then did an exercise. Not
mhm.
didn't seem like much. I left that seminar and within a matter of days made so many big changes in my life. I'm literally leaving my office job. This is the last day today, starting my practice, like all these little things. Because you don't realize like how many of the decisions you're making are informed by patterns and programs you picked up as a child. And it's so powerful to be able to like you said, remove that lens. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh, here I am. And like you start doing things, you're like, who is this person? Like what is going on? But it's very, very powerful. So cool.
Yes. Oh, I love to hear that for you because you're right. You've experienced that reset when our nervous system no longer has to react to stimuli from the past that thinks is a present threat. And once that's resolved, it's like you're limitless.
Wow.
You know, it's interesting. I actually, when you were talking about that and about her experience that you were mentioning about the singing lessons, and I thought about an actual childhood event for myself that for some reason I was very young, but this very much sticks in my head. And as you were speaking, I almost, I think, made a connection here live on the podcast, I swear, because so I am kind of on the opposite end where G is talking about I'm getting coaching. So I'm getting coached at the moment. And one thing I've realized in this experience is I've and I didn't even not even why I went into the coaching, I swear, but what I learned through all this and this deep introspection is that I have found that I feel oftentimes dismissed and that my word doesn't matter. And I was tracing it back to my childhood and a lot of the things that were going on where, certain things with my family and I wasn't feeling heard. And as you were saying that story, I was thinking too, there was a moment I was very young. I was in the car, I was in the back seat, just like you were saying. And it's funny you say that with that patient. And I was in the back seat, and my brother was in the front seat, my mom was driving, and they were talking. And in their conversation, revealed to me without even caring that I was in the back seat that Santa wasn't real. And I was a little
Oh,
kid. And that's how I found out. And
yes.
it's
Oh,
always stuck with me. And I don't know why. And I was in the backseat like, "What do you mean?" And they didn't even care that I was there to hear that. And
mm-mm.
now, as you were describing the story, it was almost, well, maybe this is where this has started, where I feel dismissed, where I don't feel heard because I was completely
Yes.
dismissed in that moment.
Wow.
Absolutely. You know what, Michael? That, first of all, would not be the first time it's happened on a podcast with me. That doing this,
Mhm.
my host has been like, oh my gosh, I just made a
Yeah.
connection. But secondly, I'm so glad that you found that because that's what we call a critical memory. And what that
Mm.
means is that memory is in an unintegrated state for you. It's static. It's like you can probably go back there and feel that still. Can you feel in your body what that felt like? And it matches what happens when you feel unheard and dismissed now. So
Wow.
what we know is that that ready state memory, if we can integrate it and put it back, then that present triggering gets reduced, if not completely goes away, because we've integrated that memory.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
If you haven't been convinced already in the first 15 minutes, then you need to reach out to Laurel Wiers and ask about her services. I'm telling you, I'm already. I just that is
That's amazing.
I wasn't sold. I was sold already, but that was wow. Yeah, just through hearing
Yeah.
that's unbelievable, and it makes so much sense for me. So now after this recording, I'm gonna have to go sit with myself for a
Yeah.
little and really think about this. So, but thank you,
Mhm.
Laurel. Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome. You're welcome. And the
Wow.
That's
and the
amazing.
process of dealing with that is easy. I mean, it's not like some big thing either. Honestly, one session, that'd be integrated and done. And then what's really cool about it is that so there were probably other events in your life that continue to be reinforced. And what happens is you don't have to revisit all of the other memories. The way that our brain and body works is that they kind of build upon each other so that when you pull that critical memory, that initial memory, the rest fall. It doesn't mean all the
Wow.
time all of them fall. If we have, let's say, 20 of them, I might get all 20. I mean, I've done that. I've done 15 years of sexual abuse in one session. Or you might get 18 of them, and then I check with people, we'll like make a timeline, we make a list of all the things that get triggered. And then once we process that first memory, I'll go back and say, now think about this memory that you told me about when you were 15. Does it feel same or different? And
Wow.
it's so beautiful that they'll be like, oh, that doesn't even bother me, because that's how your brain works. We have these adaptive memory networks. They're all in our brain. All of our memories are coded. And when you pull that one, it actually goes to all the others and then it integrates. And then those
Wow.
get the same benefit of the neutralization as that initial memory that we did. And if there's two more left, we're like, okay, cool. We'll just do the same thing and clean that up too. It's really amazing. Again, your brain is geared towards this. It wants to do this. It just needs a little bit of help.
That's amazing. So you said there are three tools that you kind of use together. Is there like a sequence that you use them or you kind of integrate, like weave them all together?
I weave them all together. So each methodology that I use has its own protocol that we're supposed to follow. So ART
Hmm.
has a protocol, EMDR has a
Yeah.
protocol, CMI. CMI is more of an overarching modality, less protocol. So what I
Hmm.
do is after having used all these modalities, I weave them within to where I know makes a difference. That's why I need to
Right.
like name my own therapy or something, I
Yeah,
think at
it
some
sounds
point.
like it. It
That's
sounds
what
like
100%.
it.
everyone keeps saying.
Yeah.
They're like, you need to come up with your own therapy. But
Hmm.
at this point, I'm just happy doing what I'm doing, which is that each of them has such pieces that are so beautiful that I can stick to the model with the fidelity of it, but then use other pieces within it, that kind of sidebar, that really make it such an integrative and beautiful experience. Because one focuses more so on high on desensitization and some reprocessing, but then another one focuses on that critical memory and really that earlier self and healing that earlier self. And then the other one does even more deeper integrative work once we've taken your fight or flight response and calmed it down. So they all serve such great
Wow.
purposes and overlap. They all overlap. They all are based in the same science, which is the memory of reconsolidation, bilateral stimulation, desensitizing, and reprocessing and integrating memories. They all are based in the same research, which I love. So you really can kind of mix and match them.
So interesting. It reminds me of when you hear like high level coaches, like somebody like Tony Robbins talking. He's experienced all these different modalities and he brings it into blend it into his own kind of mix of things. And and magic happens. So you're almost at like a higher level than just following the protocol. You're kind of listening to your intuition. You're letting that guide you kind of where the people will go. And I found that, have you done big groups where you do like interact with people in like a big group?
No, so that's the only thing I can't do with these modalities because
Uh-huh.
each person's process is so different. And for
Okay.
this reason too, sometimes if somebody has a memory and they don't realize where it originates, you could
Hmm.
have dissociation,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So sometimes, like for example, if I were doing someone with a car accident, right? A
Hmm.
car accident, people come in, they're like, Laurel, I can't drive my car since I got in this car accident. I have total panic attacks. I'm like, all right. So I've had cases where we start going through it and I know what I'm looking for at each step of what I'm doing. And if things don't move at a certain point, it means there's actually something living underneath this original memory,
Okay.
this memory,
Okay.
original. So
So you
while
need
I'm
to go
processing a
a
car,
little deeper.
yes,
Yeah.
totally. So like powerlessness. you'll
Yeah.
track back to, "Oh my gosh, my father was abusive." It happens.
Mhm.
So in a
Yeah.
group, I could have someone all of a sudden re-experiencing their trauma and dissociating, and that would be kind of dangerous. So I
Mhm.
always do one-on-one when I do this type of work. I could bring people through identifying the memory in a group, but even then you
Mhm.
almost want to be careful because body sensations can attach to memories, which could put people in a really dysregulated state. So I'm just always mindful of that.
Yeah, it's so interesting because kind of like how Michael remembered a memory, I'll find they'll do like almost like and this coach that I'm working with, and also I've seen Tony Robbins, well, they'll do like a one-on-one with someone where everyone is watching. And you think like only that person is getting benefit. But really what's happening is you're making connections by listening to their story. Like, oh wow, like
Yes.
you said the story of when you were a child sitting in the back seat. And it could be very powerful just listening, watching people go through that process.
Mhm. Absolutely. And that's why in one of the modalities that I use in our training, I was a trainer for 4 years. We told them that they were not allowed to have spouses come and watch or have other people
Mm,
come in and watch because you can have this vicarious like situation that you start
Mhm.
processing your own stuff and all of a sudden you got two people dysregulated on your hands. So you're
yeah.
Mhm.
absolutely right about that, that it's amazing where we go. I was just in a group 2 weeks ago and that thing was happening. One person was getting worked on and
Mhm.
everybody around that person was being impacted. They were crying, they were connecting to
Yeah.
their grandparent who had cancer or whatever. So you do get
Yep.
a lot of this
Yeah. I just got
transference.
goosebumps. Yeah. That it's
Yeah.
the seminar I went to, I cried so much that weekend. Like just and I it was only like a few minutes interacting, but just hearing people's story and watching them realize what's been holding them back and all these different things is very powerful stuff.
Yes,
I think
truly.
what we're saying is that Laurel needs a seminar,
Yeah.
across the
I mean, that's
country
where
and
I
then
was
across the
going.
world. So if anyone watching is looking for a star seminar leader, it's definitely Laurel, and I will be the first one to buy a ticket, because I have a
Oh,
feeling
so
I have a
sweet.
lot of
Thank you.
memories that need
Mhm.
integration. So,
Yes.
We'll
yes,
be sitting
that's
in the front
Yeah.
seat. We'll be in the
Right.
front row.
Exactly. And we'll hope that maybe we could only have two memories that integrate all of your memories. So that way
Mhm.
it
Just
will
I
go
very well
better.
might be speaking to you after this, Laurel, about some
Mhm.
of
Yes.
your services for sure. Uh, but yeah,
Uh,
that's amazing. That is amazing. And I think what's so profound, and I think when I was listening to G talk about this, it is something that, yeah, you're like you mentioned a unicorn and that you had these three modalities that you've learned and practiced and helped so many people. But I think you've learned them, but then I think it is a lot. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you have the knowledge, but then a lot of this is now almost subconscious and you're able to weaving these together when you meet
mhm.
the person and speak to them because of that uniqueness of that interaction. Can you speak to
Mm.
that? Because that's how when you were speaking about it and
Yes.
I could see your brain going, I could tell this is, yeah, you learned it and you know all these like to a T, but that now I think it's just more subconscious that you're able to weave it all together. What do you think about that?
You're absolutely right. And that's what research shows. Even in therapy, above all of our modalities, it's rapport, it's
Mm.
connection, right? As you know that as providers yourself, it is as clinicians, the strongest thing we can have is a strong bond with somebody because it doesn't matter how many modalities I know if somebody doesn't connect with me or if I can't be intuitive. And that's where I see such the change is that, I've again training clinicians for years some they all learn the same thing, but some are better at it than others. And
Mm.
some of it comes down to, right, that personal connection. How available are you emotionally to connect and hold space for your client in such a way that they feel that safety, they feel that openness? And it really is actually a very spiritual process, I call it. There are
Mm.
times when we're processing stuff with people and it's like in my mind, I can see, I'm like, I can almost envision what they're using right now to calm their body down or what's happening. And then they'll pop up. I'll do some bilateral stimulation. I'll say, what was going on for you? And they'll tell me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I literally just saw that in my mind. So I
Wow.
just think there's something super powerful about energy and allowing yourself to be connected to another human being as you're going through that processing and sharing that space and sharing that energy that really is the most beautiful part of the process. But yeah, it does become something that I call it
Wow.
like a dance. Like you just flow in and out. And I know like I'll see something happen and be like, oh, I need to go down to this. Like they just made a super powerful statement about blank. I'm going to go and dig a little bit further because once I can process that, I know that's just going to give them another level of relief. So you're right. Well, the
Wow.
modality would never teach one to do that.
Wow. And I would imagine you need to be, to a certain extent, very centered, grounded, like totally embodied to be able to provide that, to hold that space for someone else.
So that's where I'm so grateful that I have ADD because I think that it allows me to hyper focus in a way that others don't have access to. And as we
Mhm,
know, most entrepreneurs and high performing people have ADD or ADHD or some
mhm,
form of it somewhere. And I do think that instead of looking at it as a detraction, because like I can be a little bit messy in my bathroom sometimes with
mhm.
my makeup and stuff all over the place, the other good side of it is that, yes, when I am with someone, like my husband will say all the time, I'm all in. Like I hear
Mhm.
nothing. There's nothing else going on. I am not going through a grocery list with my clients. I am so about them at that moment. And I'm so grateful for that gift.
That's so funny. I
Well,
think I'm the same way. I like to be like, I can't multitask. I can't like text message and talk to you at the same time. I need to be like, and I get picked on.
Ex Exactly. It's like cooking. When
Yeah.
if someone talks to
Mhm,
me and I'm cooking, I'm like, "You don't want that.
mhm.
You either don't wanna eat
Yeah.
the food or because I could screw it up.
Yeah.
But let me focus, and then I'll be totally focused on you after." Yeah.
100%. I have a question about, I've seen, well, let me ask what your experience has been with this. When people clear these type of core memories or they like are able to reconcile them, do you find, have you seen any like physical illnesses clear up, whether that be like extra weight that they're carrying or chronic pain or something like that?
Thank you for asking that question. It's a beautiful one. Yes and yes.
Yep. Mhm,
So,
mhm.
2 things. So, as far as the chronic pain, I have had so many cases of people who have been abused sexually or physically who did not know that their pain in their body was a holdover from the abuse because as soon as the session's over, it's gone. So
Mhm.
recently I had somebody who while they were being abused, their shoulders were pushed down and she always had this like tension and tightness in her back. She never even really mentioned it except when we got to the scene she said that I didn't even put it together so much. She called me up 2 weeks later and she said, since I walked out of your office it has been gone and it's never come back.
Wow.
Same thing with I had a man who he had injury to his back when he was abused. And it literally in the session, he was like, so when you're rewatching the memory, what's so interesting is your body, you actually start to feel all the feelings for some of my clients when we have to go through the original scene of the abuse. We always you have to watch like that bad moment to get your body to release it. But he would be like, oh my gosh, my back hurts so bad. He was like, I literally can feel that thing happening. I'm saying
Wow.
it carefully because I don't want to trigger anyone who might be listening.
Mhm.
And so then when we got done, it was completely gone and it's never come back. So that
Wow.
a lot of our physical sensations can come from that. But even I had one woman, this is such a fascinating story. She came to me and she was really stressed out about work and she was not speaking up for herself or what she needed. And as her stress got worse, she got the worst case of laryngitis. It went on for months. I'm not kidding you,
Wow.
months. She went to doctors, they didn't know what to do for her. So when I was working with her, I thought, I have this I was like, Laurel, don't be weird. But I was like, I really think this has to do with her inability to speak. It was like a metaphorical representation for
Mhm.
what was going on. I kid you not. We did a whole thing around speaking up. She felt these sensations in her throat. We cleared it. Her laryngitis gone. Her voice came back within the next like 2 days.
Wow.
It was
That's so cool.
so crazy, right? So yes, your body does hold so much of that. And weight loss, that I almost see more as a byproduct with sexual abuse because people will
Mhm.
cover themselves with that.
Yeah.
And so that one is a two-tiered thing, whereas they've tried to diet before, but because their body does not want to be skinny because they'll get
Mhm.
attacked, as try as they
Right.
might, right? They cannot stick with the diet and they can't lose the weight because it's literally like fighting your protective mechanism. So when
Right.
we process the sexual abuse or the rape, what happens then is that's down and now you still have to go on the diet, but you can do it without the resistance of your body saying,
Right.
no, 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 we don't want to be successful with this. So I do see that happen as far as dieting after.
Wow, that's so cool.
well,
I'll just chime in. I'm sorry, Mike, I'm gonna cut you off. I've
please.
seen so many patients who one either they come in for weight loss or they have chronic pain or they have autoimmune issues. And I like to talk to people, so I'll start asking questions. Almost every time, once you start asking the questions, there's some kind of trauma, there's something, right? Some, like you said, a negative experience in their past. And I always felt
Mhm.
like I didn't have the tools to work through that. So I didn't even want to go there too deeply, but
Yeah.
I already sensed intuitively. So I think that's so powerful and incredible work that you're
Yes.
doing.
You are right about that. If you look down to like the list of things that are attached to trauma, it's all those autoimmune, ADHD,
Mhm.
bipolar, you name it. You get a lot of those things coming up, migraines. You'll find that there's trauma history with a lot of them.
Wow.
So very intuitive.
So interesting.
Wow. Laurel, you are literally giving people their voice back. You are clearly a gift. I had to
That
say
was
that one.
great.
Come on.
That was great.
And
That
it's
was
is
great.
amazing. And are a gift to so many people and will continue to be. So I'm just honored to know you. I think I could speak for G the same. And I want our listeners to know as we wrap up here, where can they A, find your book? Which has been so successful? And then B, where can they find you? Where can they find about you, your services? Where can they connect with you? Because if this episode wasn't enough, please connect with Laurel because this is amazing work. And I likely will be doing the same. But seriously, uh, connect with Laurel. Anyway, so can you tell us where can they find your book? Where can they find out about you?
Sure. Oh, thank you for that. So, my book, Betrayed Not Broken, they can find it on Amazon. Pretty easy to order it there. It's actually about healing from infidelity. So, it's whether you decide to stay in the relationship or leave. It's a guide to bring people through that because so much trauma comes from infidelity. But actually, a lot of people, therapists, don't work well with infidelity. So, I actually wrote a book about it so that people didn't have to go through bad therapy and get help
Mm.
with their infidelity journey. So you can get that online. And then as far as connecting with me, they can go to my website, which is laurelwiers.com. And there's a form there they can fill out and they can connect with me via email. And then I'll schedule an appointment with them. But they can also go on LinkedIn. That's kind of the platform that I choose to live on rather than the other ones. So I have lots of, posts and videos and, just posts on there that people can learn more about the way that I work and actually a lot of testimonies from my clients on there, testimonials.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Thank
Laurel,
you.
thank you so much. This
Thank
was
you so much.
eye-opening, revealing. I mean, gee, what did you think about this episode? Tell me.
Oh my God. This was so much fun. I can't believe we're out of time already.
I know.
We
I
could
know.
literally go for another hour. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and all your experience.
Well, thank you for giving me a space to share so that other
Mm.
people can heal as well. So I'm honored.
Laurel, also, I'm gonna have to throw this out there. If you'll have us, we would I think, and I think I kind of telepathic with G. I think she'll agree with me if I say this
Mhm.
anyway. I'd love to, and I agree, wish we had more time. I'd love to bring you on for almost like a part two, but in a future episode where we could do topic specific and get your expertise on it. Now that we know so much
Sure.
about you, bring you
Mhm.
on. What do you think about that?
Oh, I would love that. Definitely.
Amazing.
That's a yes. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Laura. Amazing. Well, thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
You are amazing. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you everyone for watching. This is the Upward Spiral podcast. And we'll see you next time.